Welcome to the Stoic Tide. Sometimes the weight of pain becomes so heavy, so relentless that you feel as though it's drowning you. The only way to survive is to sever that connection, to cut it off completely. But here's the terrifying question that no one talks about. What if letting go doesn't stop the pain? What if instead it leaves behind a void, an emptiness so deep that you can't escape it? What if walking away doesn't bring them back, but instead pushes them even further into the distance, as if you never mattered at all now? You might be thinking, if I just stop caring, if I let them go, that's it, it's done. But here's the thing. Letting go isn't the same as giving up. If you've been told that, well, it's time to rethink everything, we're going to tear down that lie right now. We'll chose the truth about what really happens when you choose to let go. This isn't just about pushing someone out of your life. This is about you reclaiming your power, understanding your worth, and finally recognizing that the pain you feel is not a weakness but a sign of strength. This isn't an easy conversation, but it's a necessary one. And it might change the way you see yourself, the way you view your relationships, and most importantly, the way you understand the power you hold within. So before we dive in, take a moment to hit the like button below. Help this message reach others who might need to hear it too, and if you haven't subscribed yet, do so. Now this journey is just beginning. Let's face this head, and let's explore what happens when you let go, not out of weakness, but out of the courage to finally free yourself now. Before we wrap up, I want you to take something powerful with you. Don't just watch this and move on. Stay with me until the end, and you'll discover something that will change the way you see everything. This is where it all shifts. If you're ready to transform your life, hit that subscribe button. Give this video a thumbs up and ring the bell, so you never miss this kind of transformation again. And if you're truly ready to step into your power, I want to hear from you. Comment below with the affirmation, I am worthy. Say it out loud. Own it. Because when you claim your worth, the world will have no choice but to recognize it too. How absence changes everything. Absence is powerful, but it's not as simple as just creating space and waiting for someone to notice. It doesn't work. Like flipping a switch. Absence is like a shadow. It doesn't just fill space. It reveals what's missing, but only if there was light to begin with. When they let go, their silence created a void in their relationship, but their reaction wasn't what was expected. They noticed the absence. Sure, but they didn't act on it. Why? Because to them, this was just another phase. It wasn't the first time one had pulled back after an argument. Their pattern of misunderstandings left too many unanswered questions to them. This felt temporary, like all the other times. Here's the thing about absence. It doesn't just create space. It forces reflection. But the kind of reflection it sparks depends entirely on what existed before the void. If the foundation of the relationship was strong, absence can make someone realize the value of what they had. It sparks curiosity and a desire to reconnect. But if the foundation was weak, absence often reveals cracks that were already there, exposing unspoken doubts and unresolved issues for them. The silence didn't spark regret or longing right away. It sparked confusion. They wondered, why is the other person being distant? Are they angry? Are they testing me? Because there was no clarity. Their minds filled the void with assumptions. Assumptions that the other didn't care as much as they thought that maybe the other was giving up. Meanwhile, they were battling their own assumptions. The longer they went without hearing from the other, the more they began to think, maybe they're fine without me. Maybe I didn't matter. As much as I thought. This is the paradox of absence. It's like a mirror, but the reflection isn't always clear. Absence forces both sides to confront their feelings, but what they see depends on the emotional lens they're looking through. And when emotions are running high and communication is low, that lens is often clouded by fear, ego, and misunderstanding. Imagine a dark room with only one small candle providing light. If the candle goes out, the darkness feels overwhelming. But it also makes you acutely aware of everything that's missing. The warmth, the flickering glow, the sense of safety. That's what absence feels like when the relationship has a strong foundation. The void becomes a space for reflection, a chance to realize the value of what was lost. But what happens if the room was already dark with no candle to begin with? When the absence isn't replacing something meaningful, it doesn't create the same impact. Instead, it simply reinforces the emptiness that was already there. In their case, the foundation had once been strong, built on love, but over time it had been eroded by misunderstandings and unspoken frustrations. Their absence didn't bring clarity. It added to the confusion. One thought the other was playing games, pulling away to make them chase. Meanwhile, the other assumed silence meant indifference. Both were trapped in their own interpretations of the void, and neither was brave enough to reach out and ask the hard questions. This is where Stoic philosophy can shed some light. Marcus Aurelius once said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it. That matters. The absence itself isn't the problem. It's how each person reacts to it." One's response was shaped by their own insecurities and the chaos in their life. They were recovering emotionally and physically, and didn't have the capacity to process the silence in a constructive way. The other, on the other hand, let their fear of rejection dictate their actions instead of seeing silence as a possible cry for help or a need for space. They saw it as proof that the other didn't care. This is the critical lesson. Absence forces reflection, but it doesn't guarantee understanding. The void can reveal the truth, but it can also amplify misunderstandings if the foundation of trust and communication isn't strong. When they let go and create space, two things can happen. They might feel the void and reflect on what's missing. This happens when there's a history of genuine connection, where their presence was a source of value in the other's life. The absence creates a stark contrast, forcing them to recognize what they took for granted. But if the relationship lacked clarity, if it was weighed down by unresolved issues, they might fill the void with assumptions. They could see it as a game, a power move, or even as relief from the tension. One wanted the other to feel the first type of void, the one that leads to reflection, the one that makes someone appreciate what they had. But in reality, the silence between them only widened the gap. It wasn't healing, it was growing. So how do you ensure that your absence creates the right kind of void? How do you make sure it leads to reflection instead of confusion? It all starts with what you build before you let go. Ask yourself, did I communicate my needs clearly, or did I expect them to read my mind? Did I create a relationship based on mutual respect and understanding? Or was it built on assumptions and guesswork? Am I letting go to create space for growth, or am I using silence as a weapon to force a reaction? The answers to these questions determine whether your absence becomes a catalyst for reconciliation or the final nail in the coffin. So remember, letting go isn't just about creating space, it's about creating understanding for both of you. What really happens when you let go? Let's dive into the truth about letting go. It's never as simple as it seems at first. It feels like a relief, a deep breath. After holding your chest tight for so long for them, after months of desperately trying to fix what seemed broken, stepping back was the only choice left. Letting go gave them the space to breathe again, to stop chasing, to finally feel some peace. But what happens next? That's the part that's impossible to predict. Think of it like this: letting go is like dropping a stone into a still lake. The moment it hits the water, everything changes. The ripples spread out, disturbing the calm surface. But these ripples don't reach the edges immediately. They take time, and it's in that space of waiting that doubt and fear creep in for them. Those first few days after letting go were filled with relief. Yes, but also a deep uncertainty. The silence was louder than anything. They wondered, did they make the right choice? Would the other person feel the absence, or would they just move on? As if they never mattered. On the other side of the silence, the other person felt the ripple too, but not in the way they expected. They noticed the absence, but their world was already in chaos. Their own recovery, their struggles, their pain to regain a sense of normally consumed them. So while the ripple hit them, they weren't focused on it. They were focused on survival. And this is where letting go gets complicated. It's not just about them, it's about both sides, but in ways that might not be clear right away. They might not react how you thought they would. They might seem indifferent, as if the absence doesn't matter. And in that moment, doubt starts to take over. What if they're fine without me? What if they don't even notice I'm gone? What if letting go was the biggest mistake? But here's the truth. They notice. Everyone feels the ripple of absence, even if they don't show it. Some may be slow to react or even confused. They might not immediately understand why the dynamic shifted, but the feeling is there. The ripple will always get their attention, even if it doesn't spark curiosity. Right away. Let me give you another metaphor. Think about a tree losing a branch. At first, the tree doesn't seem to care. It continues, standing tall. But as time passes, the spot where the branch once was starts to change. The structure of the tree begins to shift. That void can't be ignored forever. The same goes for them. The waiting, the uncertainty becomes the hardest part. They thought that the ripple would reach the other person quickly, and that they'd feel their absence rushing back to them. But the reality is that letting go isn't about timing. It's about what lies beneath the surface. The ripple doesn't create something new. It reveals what was already there, and that's where fear and doubt hit hardest. Letting go forces them to confront everything they've been told about strength and failure, that holding on is the real strength and letting go means giving up. But here's the truth. Letting go is not weakness. It's not failure. It's a decision to create space for clarity for both people. Because, whether it's reconciliation or a quiet end, the ripple will always reveal something. Absence creates a ripple. If the relationship was built on genuine connection, that ripple can spark reflection, even growth. But if the foundation was weak, the ripple will reveal the cracks that were already there. And that's the scariest part, isn't it? The uncertainty of what those ripples will uncover. But here's where they must remember something powerful. They can't control the other person's reaction, only their own. As Marcus Aurelius once said, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Recognizing this is where their strength lies. So if they're feeling the fear, the doubt, the uncertainty, take a moment right now to remind themselves of their strength. The ripple isn't about the other person, it's about creating clarity. Let the ripple be a reminder that they have the power to shape their path. Stay with me, because what comes next will show them how that ripple can grow into something undeniable, something far bigger than they imagined. How assumptions keep you stuck. Assumptions are the silent sabots of relationships. They slip in unnoticed, twisting reality into something that feels true, but is often far from it. When they let go, they thought they were making a bold move. They thought they were shifting the dynamic, creating space and waiting for the ripple of their absence to reach the other person. But as days turned into weeks and the silence lingered, their minds began to fill that empty space with stories. They thought if they cared, they would have reached out by now. Maybe I was never that important after all. Meanwhile, the other person was battling their own assumptions. They noticed the silence, but didn't see it as space for reflection. To them, it felt like rejection. They've moved on, they thought. So why should I reach out? I'll just embarrass myself. This is the cruel trick. Assumptions play. They create gaps in understanding, turning silence into miscommunication and distance into a breeding ground for doubt. One person believes the other doesn't care, and the other believes they've been left behind. Neither is right, but neither can see past the fog of assumptions. Here's the thing about assumptions. They're like fog on a winding road. They obscure the path ahead, making every step uncertain. Instead of seeing clearly, they're left guessing, afraid to veer off course. And the more they rely on those guesses, the more they lose sight of the truth. So why do we make these assumptions? They come from fear. Fear of rejection, fear of vulnerability, fear of facing the truth. It's easier to assume someone doesn't care than to risk reaching out and finding out. For sure, it's easier to believe they've moved on than to confront the possibility that we might have pushed them away. But here's the hard truth. Assumptions don't protect you. They trap you. They keep you stuck in a cycle of overthinking, second-guessing, and avoiding the very clarity you need to move forward. And while they're stuck in that fog, the other person is likely doing the same thing, building their own stories, filling in their own gaps, and drifting further from the truth. The situation between them is the perfect example of how dangerous assumptions can be. One assumes the other's silence means indifference, when in reality, the other person is overwhelmed by their own recovery, unsure how to navigate the silence. The other assumes coldness is a sign the other person has moved on, when in truth they're simply protecting themselves from the pain of perceived rejection. Their assumptions built walls between them, walls that grew taller with every unspoken thought. Now let's turn the lens on you. How often have you let assumptions guide your actions? How many times have you convinced yourself of someone else's thoughts or feelings without ever asking them directly? Be honest. Are you letting go for clarity, or are you hiding behind assumptions to avoid vulnerability? It's a tough question, but it's one you need to ask because assumptions don't just block communication. They steal your power every time you act on an assumption. You hand control over to fear and uncertainty, and when you do that, you lose sight of your own strength and your ability to seek the truth. So how do you break through the fog? How do you let go without losing your sense of self? It starts with a willingness to confront the uncomfortable. It means challenging the stories your mind creates and being brave enough to seek the truth even if it hurts. It means asking the hard questions. Am I assuming they don't care because I'm afraid to ask? Am I pulling away because I fear rejection? Am I letting go because it's the right choice, or because I'm avoiding vulnerability? The answers to these questions are your compass out of the fog. They guide you back to clarity, a place where your actions come from strength, not fear. As Marcus Aurelius once said, if it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it. And I'll add this: if it's not clear, do not assume it. Remember this moment, own it. Break free from the fog, from the invisible barrier assumptions have created, and let your actions be guided by truth, not fear. What comes next will show you how to reclaim your power and step into your clarity. Letting go versus giving up. Know the difference. Letting go and giving up are two actions that on the surface seem like they could be the same thing, but underneath, they couldn't be more different. One is a move of power, the other is a retreat into fear. So how do you tell the difference? More importantly, how do you make sure that your choice to step back is an act of empowerment, not avoidance? Let's start by looking at what letting go really means. Letting go is deliberate. It's a choice to release the weight of control, to stop clinging to something that no longer serves you or the relationship. It's an act of empowerment, a statement to yourself and to the universe that your peace, growth, and happiness matter more than the fear of losing someone. When you let go, you create space, not just for them to reflect, but for you to heal and rediscover your strength. Giving up, though, that's a different story. Giving up is rooted in fear and avoidance. It's throwing in the towel, not because you found peace, but because you're afraid to face the discomfort of trying. It's stepping back, not to create space, but to escape vulnerability. Giving up doesn't create growth, it creates stagnation. Now let's look at the situation between them. They thought they were letting go, but their silence wasn't rooted in clarity. It was rooted in hurt. They didn't step back to reflect or heal. They stepped back because they were too afraid to face the possibility that the other person might not care. Their silence wasn't about creating space. It was about protecting themselves from rejection. The other person didn't give up out of disinterest. Their silence wasn't a conscious decision to let go. It was a product of the chaos in their life. They were recovering physically and emotionally, and couldn't prioritize the relationship in the way the other person expected. Neither of them was truly letting go, but neither was giving up in the traditional sense either. They were stuck in a limbo of misunderstanding, each interpreting the other's actions, or lack thereof, through their own fears. Here's the critical distinction: letting go is like pruning a tree. It may feel like a loss in the moment. You're cutting away branches, removing parts of the tree, but the intention is growth. You're creating space for new leaves to sprout, for the tree to flourish in a way it couldn't before giving up on. The other hand is like leaving the garden untended. It's walking away from the tree entirely, letting it wither and hoping nature will take care of it without your input. Their relationship was like an overgrown garden. They thought they were pruning the tree by stepping back, but without clarity and without communication, it was more like walking away and hoping the tree would take care of itself. The other person, overwhelmed by their circumstances, didn't even realize the tree needed tending. The result: the garden began to wither, not because they didn't care, but because neither of them knew how to care in the right way. This brings us to a vital question. When you step back, are you letting go, or are you giving up? Are you creating space for growth, or are you avoiding the hard conversations, the vulnerability, the effort it takes to tend to the relationship? Letting go requires courage. It means acknowledging your emotions, facing your fears, and accepting the uncertainty of what might come next. It's saying, I can't control the outcome, but I can control how I respond. Giving up, by contrast, is an act of surrender to those fears. It's letting the fear of rejection, of failure, or of discomfort dictate your actions. Marcus Aurelius once said, if you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. Letting go shifts that estimate. It's not about running from pain. It's about reframing your perspective, recognizing what you can control and releasing what you can't. But here's the tricky part. What happens when the silence lasts too long? When both sides are waiting for the other to step forward, but no one does? When letting go doesn't spark reflection, but instead widens the gap. This is where the intention behind your actions becomes critical. If your letting go is rooted in empowerment, you'll find peace in the space you've created regardless of whether they step forward. But if your silence comes from a place of fear, it will only breed resentment, doubt, and more questions. Take a moment to reflect. Are you pruning the tree, or are you leaving the garden untended? Every step back should be a step forward for your growth, not a retreat into fear. Every time you make the choice to step back, ask yourself, am I letting go to create space for growth, or am I letting fear control all my actions? Remember, the only way to move forward is to choose the path that leads to your own empowerment. If you're standing still waiting for someone else to make the move, you're not letting go, you're giving up. But if you're stepping back to reflect, heal, and reclaim your strength, you are letting go in the most powerful way possible. When is the right time to let go? The truth about timing. When silence stretches on for too long, and both sides are waiting, it can feel like you're standing on the edge of a cliff, unsure of whether to step forward or walk away for good. It's a situation that begs the question, how do you know when it's time to step forward? When does letting go actually work? Let's dive into it. Timing is everything. Letting go, like many things in life, isn't just about the action itself. It's about when, why, and how it's done. It's not a one-size-fits-all process because people respond to absence in different ways and at different speeds. Some feel the void immediately, like a jolt to their system. Others take longer. Life circumstances, emotional states, and individual perspectives all play a role in how absence is perceived. Think about letting go like planting a seed. You can plant it with care, bury it at the right depth, and water it consistently, but the seed still won't grow. Unless the conditions are right. If the soil is too dry or the weather too harsh, nothing happens. But if the timing and conditions align, something beautiful starts to sprout for them. Letting go felt like planting that seed. They thought, if I give them space, they'll feel my absence and realize what we had. But what they didn't realize was that the soil wasn't ready. The other person wasn't in a place to process their absence the way they hoped. Their life was consumed by their own struggles, emotional pain, personal recovery, and trying to regain some balance. Again, the timing wasn't right. And as much as they thought they were doing the right thing, they were actually trying to force something to grow in soil that wasn't prepared. This is where the role of timing becomes clear. When you let go, you're creating an opportunity for reflection, not a guarantee that things will work out. How that opportunity is received depends on what's happening in their world. If someone is overwhelmed, distracted, or dealing with their own challenges, your absence might not hit them immediately. It's not that they don't care. It's that they simply can't prioritize the void you've created amidst everything else they're facing. The other person's delayed reaction wasn't about indifference, it was about survival. They weren't ignoring the absence, they were too focused on their own struggles to address it. But the one who stepped back misinterpreted this as apathy, and that's when the gap between them grew wider. Here's where time becomes a double-edged sword. On one hand, time can bring clarity. It gives both people space to reflect, reassess, and decide what truly matters. But on the other hand, if the silence stretches on too long, it can create distance that becomes difficult to bridge. The longer time goes on, the more entrenched their assumptions become. One person convinces themselves that the other doesn't care, and the other assumes they've been abandoned. Neither of them realizes that the silence is feeding a cycle of misunderstanding, each waiting for the other to make the first move. This is the paradox of timing. It can heal wounds, but it can also deepen them. So how do you know when the timing is right? How do you ensure that letting go creates reflection, not distance? The answer lies in understanding the context of your relationship. If the foundation is strong, if there's a history of genuine connection, letting go can be like a gentle rain on fertile soil. It nurtures what's already there, allowing feelings to grow. But if the relationship has been strained by unresolved issues or miscommunication, letting go might feel like planting a seed in barren ground. No matter how hard you try to nurture it, the seed won't grow in poor soil. Another factor to consider is your own timing. Letting go isn't just about creating space for them. It's about giving yourself the time to heal, grow, and rediscover your worth outside of the relationship. If you're stepping back with a mindset of empowerment, the timing is always right because you're prioritizing your own growth. But if you're letting go as a reaction to fear or frustration, without clarity or intention, time will only amplify the confusion. It's like planting a seed and walking away, hoping it will somehow grow on its own. So ask yourself this: am I letting go to create space for growth? Or am I letting go because I'm afraid to confront the reality of the relationship? If it's the former, timing will work in your favor even if the results aren't immediate. But if it's the latter, the silence will only widen the gap. Now let's go back to them. What if they had let go with clarity, communicating their intentions before stepping back? What if they had reached out even in their chaos to explain where they were? Emotionally, the outcome might have been different. Timing isn't just about waiting, it's about using that time wisely to foster understanding and connection. Marcus Aurelius reminds us time is like a river made up of the events that happen in a violent stream, for as soon as a thing has been seen, it is carried away, and another comes in its place. Time flows regardless of what you do. The question is whether you'll use that flow to grow or to drift apart. Take a moment to reflect on your own situation. Are you waiting for them to feel the void? Or are you using the time to rediscover your own strength? Are you allowing time to work for your growth? Or are you letting it pass by without clarity? Remember, letting go isn't about forcing someone to notice you. It's about creating space to notice yourself. It's a declaration of your own worth, a step toward growth, and a shift away from seeking validation from others. It's comfortable, yes, but it's also liberating. The danger of expectations when letting go. Be cautious not to expect too much when you let go. You're not just creating space for growth, you're also confronting one of the most dangerous traps of human nature: expectations. Expectations are powerful. They shape your thoughts, your actions, and even your reactions, but they can also trap you in a cycle of disappointment when you step back. Especially in a relationship, there's often an expectation that the other person will fill the void you've created. But what happens when those expectations are unrealistic? What happens when letting go, instead of freeing you, leaves you shackled by what you hope will happen? Think of expectations like a net. When you create an expectation, you cast it wide, hoping that something will land within its grasp. But the problem with expectations is that they're often based on assumptions. You assume that the other person will respond a certain way, that they'll realize your absence means something, or that they'll feel the pain of losing you. What you don't realize is that those assumptions are based on your own feelings, not the reality of the other person's experience. Letting go with expectations is like planting a tree and expecting it to grow. Just because you've given it some space, you might give it the right conditions, but expecting it to grow perfectly, according to your timeline, sets yourself up for frustration. What if the tree doesn't grow in the way you expected? What if it doesn't bear fruit when you thought it would? What if the roots don't go deep enough to withstand the winds you thought would pass by? These are the dangers of putting too much weight on expectations. The tree grows in its own time, in its own way, and no matter how much you want to control it, you can't rush it. The same goes for relationships. Letting go is about creating space, but it's not about controlling what happens in that space. It's about giving both people the freedom to reflect, to grow, and to decide what they want moving forward. The expectation that the other person will immediately realize the depth of your absence is unfair, because you don't know what they are going through, what they are dealing with, or where they are emotionally. Your absence, no matter how profound it may feel to you, may not have the same impact on them. And that's okay. Let's take the example of James and Elise. James let go, expecting Elise to feel his absence right away. He thought that she would notice how much he cared, how much he was sacrificing, by stepping back. But what he didn't realize was that Elise's world was entirely different. She was dealing with her own struggles. And while she noticed the silence, she didn't feel the same way he did. She wasn't ready to react, and her emotional bandwidth was already occupied by her own healing process. But the problem arose when James, still trapped by his own expectations, began to build a story in his mind. He assumed that because she wasn't reacting the way he thought she should, she didn't care. He felt ignored, rejected, and hurt. His expectation led him to misinterpret her actions, and this misunderstanding created more distance between them. This is the dangerous cycle that expectations create. They cloud your judgment, distort your perceptions, and leave you feeling powerless when you expect someone to react in a certain way. You're essentially giving them the power to control your emotions. Your happiness, your sense of self-worth becomes tied to how they respond. Bond. Instead of being rooted in your own clarity and sense of purpose, and when they don't react the way you hope you feel. Let down, betrayed, and uncertain about the future. But here's the truth. You can't control someone else's feelings. You can't control how they respond to your absence or whether they miss you or not. Expectations breed disappointment because they place the outcome in the hands of someone else. Instead of focusing on what you can control, your own actions, your own growth, you're giving away your power to the uncertainty of how they will feel or act. Letting go without expectations is freeing. It's a release not just of the other person, but of the need to control the situation. It's about stepping back with the understanding that whatever happens next is not a reflection of your worth or your efforts. It's about accepting that the relationship may not turn out how you imagined. And that's so okay. This shift in mindset doesn't mean you stop caring about the other person. It means you stop relying on them to complete you, to validate you, or to make your choices for you. When you let go without expectations, you're telling yourself that your peace, your growth, and your happiness come from within, not from how someone else reacts to you. This is empowering. It's about embracing the unknown, letting go of the outcome, and allowing things to unfold naturally. Expectations also make it difficult to see the truth. You might hold on to an idealized version of someone or something, projecting your hopes and dreams onto them. But when you let go without expectations, you're accepting things for what they are not, what you wish they were. This is where clarity comes in. Letting go without the weight of expectations clears the fog of illusion and allows you to see things as they truly are, not as you want them to be. So the next time you find yourself stepping back, ask yourself, what am I really expecting? Are you hoping the other person will realize your worth, feel your absence, or come rushing back to you? Or are you stepping back because you know that this is the right choice for your growth, your peace, and your journey? The difference between these two motivations will determine the success of your letting go. Letting go is not about forcing someone to realize your value. It's about recognizing your own worth and allowing yourself to heal and grow, regardless of how the other person responds. The beauty of letting go is that it allows you to find strength in yourself, not in someone else's approval or recognition. It's a declaration of self-respect, a commitment to your own happiness, and a way to release the need for external validation. In the end, the most important thing to remember is this: you are in control of how you react, how you heal, and how you move forward. Don't let expectations cloud that. Step back when you need to, but do it with clarity, not with a hidden agenda. Letting go without expectations doesn't make you weak. It makes you wise.